How fear-driven crises undermines rational policy formation. Are we entering a new era of engineered crises and policy capture, where fiscal decisions aren't debated but dictated? In this exposé, we uncover how fear, financial collapse, and private power players like BlackRock reshape U.S. economic response, erode democratic debate, and script our monetary future. The real question: who's really in charge when crisis strikes? Public panic and policy capture. In periods of acute national crisis, fear displaces reason, and public demand for immediate governmental solutions tends to preclude rational debate. Crises such as COVID-19 illuminate this behavioral pattern. As society confronted an existential threat, focus remained almost exclusively on biosecurity, while fiscal and economic implications were either sidelined or managed without transparency. The federal government, often in concert with influential private financial actors like BlackRock, has shown a propensity to design fiscal responses in advance of crises, leaving minimal space for democratic engagement or scrutiny when policy is ultimately deployed. Footnote: crises historically produce public pressure that encourages hasty, top-down policy decisions dominated by prepositioned private stakeholders. 2. BlackRock's embedded role in crisis governance. BlackRock, one of the world's largest asset managers, played a preemptive role in shaping U.S. fiscal policy in the lead-up to COVID-19's economic fallout. Their pre-crisis recommendations, adopted in various forms by the Federal Reserve, underscore the firm's systemic influence. Notably, former BlackRock executives have been installed in key economic positions within the current administration, a continuation of a bipartisan tradition wherein private financial interests shape public economic governance. Despite its gravity, media coverage of BlackRock's governmental entrenchment remains sparse. Footnote: BlackRock has transitioned from financial giant to quasi-public policy architect, with limited public accountability. 3. The Treasury Wall Street revolving door. For decades, the U.S. Treasury has operated within a revolving door paradigm, where former Wall Street executives routinely assume high-ranking governmental posts. From Robert Rubin's role in repealing Glass-Steagall under Clinton, to Henry Paulson's threats of martial law during the 2008 crisis, to Steve Mnuchin's pandemic-era interventions, a consistent pattern emerges. Wall Street's priorities remain central, while the broader public interest is subordinated. This dynamic evidences deep regulatory capture, in which industry insiders control the agencies meant to oversee them. Footnote: Treasury policy across administrations reflects the interests of financial elites due to systemic regulatory capture. 4. Main Street's unacknowledged interests. The average American desires secure housing, affordable necessities, savings for the future, and intergenerational prosperity. Yet public policy has not reflected these core interests. Instead, tax revenues are frequently diverted toward unaccountable military-industrial ventures and opaque foreign interventions. Research from experts like Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore has identified trillions in unaccounted federal expenditures, which neither benefit domestic infrastructure nor the U.S. population. Footnote: government spending often ignores the material interests of the public in favor of elite and defense sector beneficiaries. 5. The manufactured consent behind economic policy. While the average citizen may not consciously recognize systemic economic theft, their lives are materially affected. Deindustrialization, tax exploitation, and misallocated expenditures are justified under the guise of national security or economic necessity. Politicians, largely millionaires backed by billionaires, allocate resources in alignment with their class interests, not those of their constituents. When financial waste or abuse arises, accountability is rare, and public awareness is suppressed through selective media coverage. Footnote: disparities in policy outcomes reflect a deeper divergence between elite and public priorities, facilitated by political complicity. 6. Silicon Valley's vision, digital dependency and UBI. Emerging systems promoted by Silicon Valley oligarchs aim to replace industrial labor structures with digitally governed platforms, including digital IDs, wallets, and universal basic income, UBI. Such programs are not designed for the elites funding them, but for a managed underclass. The risk is a technocratic society where social engineering replaces free enterprise and personal agency. These tools facilitate the creation of a two-tiered system, enabling financial elites to maintain control over an increasingly dependent population. Footnote: the shift toward digital economic governance threatens to consolidate control while eroding middle-class autonomy. 7. Neo-feudalism and technocratic authoritarianism. The prevailing trajectory suggests the erosion of the middle class and the rise of a neo-feudal order. Influential thought leaders such as Dennis Meadows and Eric Schmidt have explicitly described futures wherein resource allocation and social function are determined by scientific elites. These frameworks envision a world where human autonomy is not merely diminished but rendered obsolete, justified under the pretense of ecological stewardship and technological optimization. Footnote: technocratic paradigms seek to replace democratic governance with centralized algorithmic control under elite stewardship. 8. Algorithmic governance and state-controlled reality. Research funded by the U.S. military and other governments into social media manipulation and behavioral control has transformed the online environment into a tool for mass psychological influence. With AI-enabled censorship and deepfake technologies, public perception of reality becomes susceptible to state-engineered illusions. Under such conditions, consent becomes manufactured and dissent increasingly delegitimized. A future governed by algorithmic truth enables the state to deflect responsibility for harmful policies by attributing decisions to autonomous digital agents. Footnote: governments are weaponizing digital tools to shape public perception and neutralize dissent under the guise of security and innovation. 9. The false divinity of artificial intelligence. The notion of surrendering human agency to an allegedly omniscient algorithm, whether real or fictitious, represents a perilous abdication of civic responsibility. The myth of a benevolent, godlike AI is seductive but misleading. As history reveals, declarations of supreme authority, be they religious, corporate, or computational, often mask mechanisms of control. The deployment of AI to automate policy removes accountability from human actors while centralizing power in opaque technical systems. True liberty cannot coexist with digital omnipotence. Footnote: deference to AI authority risks replacing democratic governance with unaccountable algorithmic rule. 10. Toward a human-centered future. The challenge before us is not merely to resist dystopia, but to affirm human dignity as the organizing principle of public life. This requires defending the capacity for individual thought, creativity, and error. It also demands transparency, structural reform, and a vigilant public no longer content to outsource governance to digital systems or financial elites. Without deliberate cultural and institutional resistance, we risk trading the complexity of democratic society for the false clarity of algorithmic control. Footnote: preserving human freedom requires systemic reforms that prioritize transparency, civic empowerment, and technological humility.